Hello everyone, it's Jim here at GTT. I was going to say good morning, but it's like, it's 12 o'clock, isn't it? What am I talking about? It's 1 o'clock. Therefore it's this afternoon. It's been a long day already, Graham. And talking of Graham, good afternoon, Graham. How are you doing?
I'm amazing, Jim. Are you all right?
Yeah, really good. And well, it's half term, isn't it? And we're getting ready for the Jubilee celebrations, but we've got time to do a quick sort of 20-30 minutes of quick fire revision for Edexcel A-Level Business. So welcome to everyone who's joining us live. We've already got 50 people joining us live, and the number is growing by the second. And I think we had a couple of thousand people, didn't we, watch Monday's session on replay as well. So if you're joining us on replay, a warm welcome to you too. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to help YouTube suggest this and other sessions to other Edexcel students. What's the format today, Graham? A quick fire session, isn't it? Not too long today.
Not too long, no. I thought we'd start off with a couple of MCQs and revisit a couple of MCQs, quite a tricky calculation on gearing, because on Monday we were asked about gearing, so I thought we'll squeeze one of them in. And just a quick overview of 4-mark questions with a focus on break-even and looking at the technique needed to help you secure those all-important 4 marks. 4-mark explain questions. Just
whilst we're talking about calculations, we've just been having a chat. I think we're going to be looking to do a sort of calculation warm-up, aren't we, on the Tuesday, a couple of days before paper 2. So we'll have a chance to work through all the different calculations, because I think in paper 2 there are quite a few, aren't there? Not just gearing, but the other ones we covered on Monday. And also, I think we're going to be doing some stuff on 20 markers in the clinic, aren't we, on Monday? So yeah,
we'll go over a quick overview of 10, 12 and 20 marks, suggested structures and things.
Yeah, but anyway, as we go, feel free to ask any questions in the live chat. And, of course, we'll have a minute or two at the end of the activities if you want to leave your question until later. And do have a go. G, over to you.
Okay, so let's start off, hello everyone, with some rather straightforward MCQs. So the formula to calculate break-even, so break-even on paper 2, If you think it's A, then type in A. If you think it's B, type in B, and so on and so forth. So what is the formula to calculate break even? What do we think? So some answers coming in at the moment. Oh, so a flurry of answers there. And it's sort of 50-50 between B and C. And I think now as more answers are coming in, the majority are going for B, but there were lots of C's there. And the answer is indeed, it is B. So remember, it's just fixed costs divided by contribution per unit. Now remember, contribution per unit is selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. And as we looked at on Monday, you may need to calculate the margin of safety, so you may need to calculate the break-even point before going on to calculate the margin of safety. If you calculate the break-even point and it comes out as a decimal, then you must round up, because break-even only occurs at the next whole unit. So make sure that you round up. If there's a break-even calculation, that comes in at a decimal. So next slide, please, Jim. Question 2. So which of the following is not an element of SWOT analysis? This is a tricky one. Is it strengths, weaknesses, objectives, or threats? What do we think? Which of the following is not an element of SWOT analysis? Is it strengths? Is it weaknesses? Is it objectives, or is it threats? And the majority are going for, and I can certainly see the answer on screen, the majority are going for C. Let's have a look. So before we move on to the next question, can you type in, so if the O is not objectives, what is the O stand for? What does the O stand for in SWOT analysis? What do you think? What do you think? You maybe ask the question, maybe something along, assess the value of SWOT analysis to a business such as, so Grim has no weaknesses. That's not true, but it's a nice thought. And I think we've got Katerina there who said opportunities. So yes, so SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Well, Hannah's there. Could a question be asking us to assess the value of SWOT analysis? Well, it could be, why is SWOT analysis valuable to a business? Why might it not be valuable? Then a judgment as to overall whether it is valuable or not. So remember, any assess question, whether it's 10 or 12 mark questions, you only need to give a balanced response. So something like assess the value of SWOT analysis to, Tesco. You would argue why SWOT analysis may be valuable to a business such as Tesco. Then you would counter-argument that with why SWOT analysis may not be valuable to a business such as Tesco, if the question's about Tesco, and then you would come up with a judgment as to whether, how valuable it could be. So yeah, it could be invaluable. So that could be a counter-argument. Why it's not of value is, in essence, why it's, So remember, any balanced response, so a question such as assess the benefit, say, of SWOT analysis to a business. Again, why is it a benefit? Why is it not a benefit? An overall judgment, if it is an assessed question. Of course, it could be a 4-mark explain question. Let's move on to question 3. So using historical data, lots of stuff coming in the chat windows. I'm trying to pick up on it as we go along. So using historical data to make predictions about future values is called moving averages, scatter graphs, correlation, extrapolation. I'm going to pick up on Ella's point in the chat window in a second. But let's have a go at this question. So using historical data to make predictions about future values is called, is it moving averages? Is it scatter graphs? Is it correlation? Is it extrapolation? All part of quantitative sales forecasting this. So I think most of us have gone for, and I'm just going to go look through the chat so I'll get Ella's point there. So shall we reveal the answer, Jim? It is indeed the extrapolation. Now, remember, on Monday's session, we did look at moving averages. Moving averages, as we know, are a concept that allows us to smooth out fluctuations in sales data to find the underlying trend, and then we would extrapolate that forward. So, Ella said, for 10 or 12 mark questions, do you give 2 paragraphs? I've always done 2 paragraphs with for and against in them, but just found out only one could be necessary. So, in terms of, there's no set amount of paragraphs you need to write for a 10 and 12 mark question. What you do need to ensure is your assessment. So all 10 or 12 mark questions will be assess. So assess the value, assess the extent, assess the benefit, assess the limitations. You have to produce a balanced response. So two arguments that are opposing can give you the balance, and then you need a judgment. So a question such as assess the benefit of break-even analysis to a business such as Tutor to You. So that could be a 10-mark question, could be a 12. Say it's a 12-mark question. Assess the value of break-even analysis to a business such as Tutor to You. You need to provide why it is of value. So that would be your first paragraph. So logical chains of reasoning applied. Why break-even analysis may be of value to Tutor to You. You have to provide balance. So you then need a counter argument. So then you have to argue why it may not be of value, why it may be limited in the context of Tutor to You. Then at the end, you would come up with a supporting judgment. So you can write more than 2 paragraphs in a conclusion. Of course you can. But all anyone's looking for is your assessment balanced. So an argument for and an argument against, depending on the question, can it get your balance? And then you would need your supporting judgment after that. So hopefully there's Ella's made another question. There was a question about assess one reason. Well then, so that's still a 10-mark question, such as assess one reason or assess a reason. Obviously, still needs to be balanced. So you would say, I don't know the question because I've not seen the paper, but it would need to be. I think that was about. Was that about trading blocks? I think it might have been about trading blocks. So you would assess, one if it was one reason, what a benefit of that reason, or then a downside of that reason, then a supporting judgment. Every 10 and 12 mark question has to have balance. That's the rule. So really, at least 2 paragraphs balanced and a supporting judgment. Of course, you can write more. You can write as many paragraphs as you want, but writing more paragraphs just can lead you down to writing more underdeveloped points and not getting those really deep chains of reasoning, which we want. So hopefully, yeah, no problem, Ella. That is what we are here today to do. So let's look at Q4. All things remaining the same, all things being equal, which of the following will lead to an increase in the margin of safety? What do we think of that one? That's a tricky one, that one. So all things remaining the same, which of the following will lead to an increase in the margin of safety? Would it be an increase in the variable cost per unit, a reduction in the selling price per unit, a decrease in fixed costs, an increase in fixed costs? So P's got no clue. No clue's not one of the options. P, what do we think? So a lot going for C. I thought this was really tricky. It is tricky, and I'm amazing. Jim, we keep saying this. Someone needs to call 999 because these students are on fire this afternoon.
Yeah, that's a hard question, that wasn't it?
That was a hard question. It is indeed C. So let's go, because there's about 100 of us on watching, and there's only about 20 answers coming in. So there's a lot of people either, maybe not sure or doesn't want to volunteer an answer. If we think about an increase in the variable cost per unit will reduce the contribution per unit, therefore increasing the break-even point, reducing margin of safety. Same thing applies to a reduction in the selling price per unit. So that again reduces the contribution affects the contribution per unit, which affects break-even, which therefore affects margin of safety. And an increase in fixed costs, obviously more need to be sold in order to break even, therefore increases the break-even point, therefore decreases the margin of safety. So a decrease in fixed costs means will lead to an increase, which is good news. So an increase in variable cost per unit will reduce the contribution per unit, which will decrease the margin of safety, as will a reduction in the selling price per unit, as will an increase in fixed costs. So margin of safety is basically actual output minus break-even output. That's what margin of safety is. So you may need to calculate break-even before going on to calculate margin of safety. So remember, reducing the selling price affects the contribution per unit, which therefore affects the break even, which leads to a decrease in the margin of safety. Well done, everyone. Last MCQ. So last year, a business had an adverse cost variance of £150,000. Budgeted costs were £400,000. What were the actual costs? What do we think? A, B, C, or D? So some answers coming in pretty quick, which is great. So we split between C and D. So I can see why some people maybe have gone for C. The majority are going for D. Some still going for C. Let's reveal the answer. It is D. So if you think about it, an adverse cost variance means actual costs were higher than budget. Therefore, if the budget cost were 400,000, an adverse cost variance of 150,000 means that actual costs were 550,000. We can work that backwards, can't we? But actual minus budget. So well done, everyone, for that one. Good stuff. Great questions. Keep them coming. So this is calculation time now. So the table on screen shows some selected data relating to a business. Calculators or smartphones, pens and paper at the ready. Can you calculate the gearing ratio of the business and then type that into the chat window? So remember, gearing and return on capital employed are the two key ratios that may appear on paper 2. So gearing and return on capital employed. What do we think? So little things. I know we're typing chat. Remember, gearing's always expressed as a percentage. So don't forget to leave the percentage sign off. The majority are, these are a few different answers, but it looks as though the majority are going for 37.5. Now remember, to work this out, so gearing is non-current liabilities divided by capital employed times 100. And we weren't given capital employed on screen. We needed to work it out. So remember, capital employed is simply non-current liabilities plus total equity. So subsequently, our capital employed is £800,000. So the 300,000 divided by the £800,000 times 100 gives us a gearing ratio of 37.5%. Well done, everyone, for that. Good stuff. Let's move on to now, please, Jim. Let's just recap. 4 more explain questions. So, we know the only appear in paper 1 and paper 2. There are no 4-mark, explain questions in paper 3. So the 4-mark questions are replaced by an 8-mark question. So the 4-mark explain questions are always marked the same way. You've got 1 mark for knowledge, 2 marks for application, and 1 mark for analysis. Now, you can start with a definition in these questions if you want. That would secure you the knowledge mark, but you don't need to. You can get the knowledge within the body of your response. If you want to start with a definition, that's fine, but you don't have to. That may save you time in the exam by not writing a definition, because the understanding can be demonstrated in the body of the response, as we'll see when we look at our break-even question. So a little bit more on 4-mark explain questions. Next slide, please, Jim. So what we're after is where most students fall down. When you look at when you analyse the results, most students get around just average around 2 out of 4, depending on the question. So, and it tends to be a lack of application. So to secure the 2 application marks, you need to have 2 different distinct elements of application. Nothing's wrong with definitions, Cornelius, nothing at all. As I've said, you can start with a definition. Absolutely fine. That will secure you the knowledge mark. But what I'm saying is you can get the knowledge mark within the body of your response. That's your decision to make. So that's, as we'll see in the next answer. And we'll see if a definition would have added any value to the response. So you need to make sure you have 2 different distinct elements of application within your answer. Now, so that makes either good use of the extract or your own understanding. You must make sure your answer is related and relevant to the business in the question. If the question asks you to explain 1 point, then don't explain time wasting 2, because you're not asked to explain 2. An extra point explained will not give you any extra marks. What is really important, if the question refers to a specific extract, then you must use data from that extract within your answer. That applies to every question, actually. So if it says like using the data in extract, so you might have a table of, I don't know, sales revenue. If it is, that might be extract B. If it says use the data in extract B, you'll be expected to pull some information from that table of data. Okay, to get the application marks. Now, the key thing is not to overanalyze at the expense of application. Okay. So let's look at our even. Our extract. So this is a business which is actually real and exists, because I've been there. It's a vegan cafe located in Newcastle. Now, I'm from Sunderland, so I don't often venture to Newcastle, but sometimes I do. Vigano have an extensive menu of plant-based and vegan food and drink, selling around 50 different products, such as mac and cheese, the Vegatus chicken burger. You see, they've been very clever with the names there. We get the picture, don't we? It sells plant-based and vegan food, cheesy garlic fries, dairy-free ice cream milkshakes. They are amazing. So if you're ever up there, I can highly recommend that. Now, prices range from £1 for a bottle of water to £10.95 for their Verdura vegan pizza. The average selling price in the cafe is £7, and the average variable cost per unit is £4. Okay, so due to the growth in demand for plant-based and vegan food, Vigano are planning to open a second vegan cafe in Sunderland with the same menu and pricing as the Newcastle cafe. They are using... Oh, sorry, Jim, can we go back? I think that might be a timing on the slide there. That would be my fault. So they are using break-even analysis to assess the viability of the new cafe based on the average selling price and variable cost per unit. So we've got a situation where they're going to open up another vegan cafe in Sunderland, same menu. They're going to use break-even analysis based on the average selling price and variable cost per unit. So our question is, explain one limitation of break-even analysis to Vigano. So in the chat window, what do we think? What is a limitation of break-even analysis in the context of this particular business from what we've read? Because that's what we're after. We're not after a generic limitation of break-even analysis. We can come up with loads of them. Based on what you've read and the situation this business finds itself in, why is break-even analysis limited in the case of assessing the viability of the new cafe? What do you think? What do we think? Any ideas? Or if you want to come up with some generic limitations of break-even, then maybe we can sort of develop those a little bit further. Now that is so. I think Jack MG there and J04 have really hit the nail on the head. Break-even is at its best when it's using one product. And we know that is really good. We know, and there was really, Jack, and that's a really good point that about it's got a large product portfolio, and there was a bit of such as seasoning there. There's a bit of such as seasoning when how many products they assign. It's a multi-product cafe. It has different prices, and break-even analysis is going to be limited for the fact that they're using an average selling price. Well, we know they sell 50 products. Surely the contribution per unit is different for every product. So subsequently, how valuable is break-even analysis to any business with lots of products? But in particular, then we need to apply that to Vigano. So really the theory is how the limitations of break-even analysis to multi-product businesses we know. Again, that's a good point, James, there, assuming the sales volume is going to be the same and, different products have different contributions. Maybe in Sunderland, people buy more Vegatus chicken burger, which have one contribution, and maybe Newcastle people buy more mac and cheese. So it is entirely limited. And yeah, so Floral there there's some amazing, amazing points. And I think what's really good is what's seen in the chat window is the fact, limitation that is it sells vegan products. Very good. I'm chuckling at that one myself. what we're seeing is it's probably not that reliable in the case of Vigano. Let's look at an answer. So we've got, start off with our point. There's no definition here. Our definition wouldn't have added any value to the response, but you could have started off with a definition of break even. It's unrealistic, as they sell a wide range of food and drink. So immediately, we're into application, aren't we? So Vigano sell around 50 different types of vegan food and drink, each with their own individual price and variable cost per unit. There's some more application there about selling a price of bottle of water for £1 compared to £10.95. Now, because it's multi-product and we're developing our analysis here in our application, using break-even analysis for the new cafe, they may therefore produce unrealistic results as they are working on the assumption of a contribution per unit of £3. That is really good application because we've worked out the contribution per unit. We weren't given that. That's been worked out and used to support response. And that's a really good method of application. If you can perform or manipulate data or perform a calculation that you weren't asked for and use that to support an argument, that's a really good method of getting strong application. So, which is based on the average selling price, whereas the contribution per unit for all their different food and drink, sorry, my mistake, Jim, different food and drink may be completely different.
These special timings you're putting on these slides, Graham, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I know. Copy and pasting the slides, I know, I'm sorry. But it adds to the charm. This could result in an actual break-even point for the new cafe, which is, so now we're developing the point. Here's our analysis. This could result in an actual, yes, and it is too long for an answer, though, and I'm going to pick up on that. It was written to elicit that point after. So this could result in an actual break-even point for the new cafe, which is much higher compared to the one based on the average selling price and variable cost per unit, meaning that the cafe may require far higher sales than estimated to break even, which may impact on the viability of the new cafe. Now, in terms of, is that too long? Now, students are writing that level. Some students do write that amount for 4-mark questions. If you think about it, if you think in a 10-mark question where you're given an argument for and an argument against and a judgment, then, the judgment's put in a 10-mark is worth 2 marks. So, that is a really strong argument. But yes, there's probably too much in that. And that's what I wanted to pick up on. There's probably too much application in there. Remember what I said in the start is you only need 2 strands of application. So there's probably lots here. So if we've got the start sells a wide range of food and drink, we've got more about the food and drink, and that second point there, that second paragraph, Vigano sell around, really doesn't add a lot of value to the answer. Okay? Didn't really add a lot of value in the answer. So what we're saying is, if you know now that you 1 mark for knowledge, 2 marks for application, 1 mark for analysis, you can write far more efficiently and produce an answer that is, lower than that or less, less writing than that and still get the marks. But anyway, what we also wanted to show you is, some students do write that amount, some students don't. But it's a technique, isn't it? It's about using the information in the extract and using that to support your analysis. Does that, whoever wrote that, well, it's me, do I show an understanding of break-even analysis within that answer? Yes. Is there a definition? No. So therefore, it just shows that, really don't need to be writing definitions. But of course, you can do. And I think, Jim, we're done.
Yeah. Superb stuff. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's really interesting, this idea of efficient answers, isn't it? For example, you mentioned a couple of ideas there, not having to start with the definition if you don't want to, because you're going to get the knowledge mark from what you write, showing an understanding in that case of break even, but then also not over analyzing. Getting the two or three strands of application in effectively helps you analyze quite efficiently, doesn't it? And then you move on. 4 marks done. Move on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that was written to elicit the discussion in the chat window. There was a lot in there. So really, you only need 2 strands of application, and remember, there's only 1 mark for analysis.
Florals nailed it. Their answer was a bit waffly. I think that's, but I think that was written to illustrate the point, wasn't it? That you could actually write less.
More or less. That second paragraph. Yeah. That second paragraph was written to show that actually it added little value to the response.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be a criticism of you, Graham. I think
Oh no, no.
it's a good point, wasn't it? It was a little bit,
It was
but as
written-
you say,
it was
lots of
written-
students,
well.
lots of students are writing that number of words that to that sort of
Definitely.
degree. So there are some efficiencies there if we can tighten it up a little bit for those 4 markers.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, should we just flick back on it 1 second and let's
Sure.
look at all the application points. Let's see how many application points there are there. So there's an application point there, food and drink at the start. So that's one application point. Sell 50 types of feed and food and drink. That's another application point. Selling price of a bottle of water. There's 3 application points there already. And then we've got about work and the contribution. There's application point 4. We've got about the new cafe application point 5. So there's really 5 or 6 bits of application in there when we only really need 2.
Yeah. Superb stuff. That's really useful, G. Fantastic. We've got a minute or so, I think, if anybody else has got any questions. Just a quick reminder, if you're joining us live, we've got a couple more. I think we're planning a couple more sessions, aren't we, before paper 2. We've got our revision clinic Q&A. And Graham, I think you were saying earlier we're going to certainly touch on the 20-mark structure. A reminder on that. And then also we were thinking of doing a quick calculation warm-up, weren't we, for paper 2, because paper 2 seems to have more calculations possible than other
Yeah. So we'll do something around on Monday about, a bit of a clinic, some suggested structures. I was at Wembley, Jack. Yeah. I was at Wembley. So something around the, I was there. I mean, you're not a Sunderland fan if you're not at Wembley. So yes, so we're going to do something around the structures, maybe the 10, the 12, and the 20. Not going through answers, but just looking at suggested structures. Because Ella raised a really, really good point in the chat window about paragraphs and how many paragraphs do we need, and there's no set amount. We just need balance. Lots of. So in terms of ARR NPV payback, that's in paper 3, Ella. That. So investment appraisal on your P is in paper 3. And would you believe I've written a session, Jim, on investment appraisal and a 12-mark question.
Yeah. So we'll deal with paper 3 once we've got paper 2 out of the way, Ella. I think that's the best way, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's hit the alligator, Jim, nearest the boat, and let's deal with paper 2. And the alligator further in the future is paper 3. Let's get the paper 2 alligator. So what we got there, I'm losing. Now Hannah, I'll just pick up on Hannah's point there. Could the 20 mark involve calculations? Or yes, indeed, definitely. So, for example, I can't remember the year. I think it might have been It was 2018, maybe, or 2019. And although this was paper 3, there was a 20 mark question where students had to calculate some moving averages and use the results of those calculations in the body of their response. Lots of students did the calculations correctly, but just completely ignored them and never used them in their answer. So therefore, yes, 20 marks can indeed involve calculations, and there is evidence that's been done before. Now, remember, quantitative sales forecasting, moving averages comes up again, or it's on the advanced information for paper 2. So you could get something along that again, maybe a calculation question.
Superb stuff. Right, we're out of time. We said half an hour, and we've packed a heck of a lot into that session. So as always, Jig, massive thanks to you. Hopefully, you're gonna have a good bank holiday break. And I say we're back, aren't we, with some more Edexcel revision as we start the run up to paper 2 next week.
Yeah.
All the best to everyone who's continuing to work with their revision over the next few days. We'll catch you at the start of next week, and I hope all the other subjects are going well too. Until then, cheers, Graham, and thanks everyone. See you later.
Cheers now.